He is what you call a public advocate and intellectual because he has put his skills at the service of the wider community. I'm not sure when he finds time to make a living because he gives so much service. He is a quantum transformation psychologist and he blends in his work ancient wisdom and the very latest thinking, some of which he has innovated. He covers a wide spectrum. His expertise ranges across all aspects of life and all its endeavors, energy, hospitality, finance, gaming, telecommunications. He has worked all over the world, North America, South America, Europe, across the Caribbean. He has led numerous training seminars, leadership courses, and he has put his skills at the disposal of the society. He was trained at City College, New York, where he did his BA. Then he did his master's and PhD at Rutgers, the State University for New Jersey. He has held teaching and research positions at Rutgers University, Cornell University, and University of the West Indies. He is a frequent resource person in the media. This, of course, in no way covers all his expertise, but I think he understands that in the interest of time, we'd rather have him speak than be introduced.
Thank you very much. Indeed, a pleasure for me to share this environment. Um, because of how I work, in terms of that interface between quantum physics, neurology, and psychology, I wait for things to come to me. And this morning, the pieces came to me in just 4 sets of images. And I thank you very much for opening the baton. So you take some of the shine off the ball so I can make some runs now, all right? So the title that I'm using is Dialectics of Gender from Beyond the Walls of the University. The words are specifically chosen. And I'm going to use my 10 minutes to give 4 scenarios. Scenario 1. Early in the 1980s, when I was research fellow in child development at this university, we were involved in a transformation project. And we commissioned a group of women who had a very powerful organization using drama and music in transformation to close the event. And they had a wonderful song which they did a parody on Jimmy Cliff's Bongo Man a Come, and they called it Women Time a Come. Powerful. So we asked them to do a special version for us to close the event. And after you sing the verse, say, Woman Time a Come, add another verse, Children Time a Come, and then add a third verse, Family Time a Come, to pull it all together. The day of the event, they sang the verse on Woman Time, then they sang the verse on Children Time, then they glanced at us and they glanced at each other, and they revisited the verse on Woman Time. Scenario 1. Scenario 2. I was asked by TVJ to create a program called Man Talk, because I realized there was really, in this society, there's absolutely no context for dealing with the issues as relates to men and boys. So let's use media. We broke some incredible barriers. The first thing I created a set that the TV station was upset. The set was a bar. So when man went down and talk, we went down and cut with 10 and say, hello, so what do you think? I'm the bartender. You come to my bar to talk to me. And then we had some guests who were playing domino. And just a bar, when the argument sweet you, you come by the bar and buy out the argument. So we did that. I parted company with them because I wasn't committed to their commitment to mediocrity. The show was converted to a farce hosted by Crosskill and then Ragashanti. And finally, it was converted to a comedy hosted by a woman? Would Jamaica have allowed a show called Woman Talk to be hosted by a man? It was a comedy. Scenario 2. Scenario 3. In the 80s, I was asked by UNICEF to document a phenomenon that they saw in St. Lucia. Didn't understand it. St. Lucia has a thing called the Mothers and Fathers Organization. It's the most powerful NGO. Anybody running for power, you better go talk to the mothers and fathers. So what is it that brought about this empowerment of mothers and fathers to be the engine of growth? So I went there and I visited all the older people who knew the history, and they gave me the history, and I went from community to community to do my documentation. They say it started out as a women's group celebrating Mother's Day. And all around the island there are competitions for who can have the best Mother's Day celebration. And these mothers groups emerged. Now the fathers got jealous. And then they started some Father's Day celebration. And to see who can outdo the mothers with their celebration. And then somebody suggested, but why are we competing? Why don't both of us work together and we celebrate Mother's Day? And then we celebrate Father's Day. And out of that, they became the Mothers and Fathers Organization in every community except one. Why that one? So I went and I visited. Ancillary. WAND intervened early in the process and changed the women's group, the mothers group, into a women's group. Because they say the word mother is a discriminatory word. It's a limiting word. Note the dialectics. If you say mother, the mind says father. But what happened with the women's group though? Men became the enemy, children became the obstacle. That community never generated a fathers group and never generated a mothers and fathers organization. Final scenario. The Economist magazine, September 28, 1996, the cover says, "The Trouble with Men." And the Economist magazine predicted that the Western world's biggest social problem will be males, young, uneducated, unmarried, unemployed, unemployable. The world's biggest problem. I propose that they are correct, and our biggest gender-related problem is that transition of boys to men. It's the result why we build prisons. It's the result we need security company. If we don't address this as our primary problem, then we kill the whole away. Why do I say this? In almost every society, men are the ones who are overwhelmingly involved in wars, intergroup conflict, intergroup homicide. Wars are a biosocial products of men to gain status, resource, and to protect family. Now just take that out of the hundreds of thousands of years of human development. Men mobilize themselves into armies of violent fans just for a football game, into criminal gangs. How many gangs do you have in Jamaica now? 300 how much? Into bands of thugs. It's almost embedded. The results, men commit homicide on the average 26 times more frequently than women. There's a wonderful 90% barrier that covers almost everything. The number of men who are involved, the victims of homicide. 90% of people who were killed are men. Anything that kills people kills more men than women. There's only one era where women die more than men, and it's childbirth. And if man could have picnic, we'd have dead easier. Fragile. Every single thing. Men die more at work, men die more in traffic accidents, men die more from drug overdose, anything that kills people. 90% of crimes are committed by men. 90% of serial killers are men. 90% of family aside, people kill them family. are men. You add cruelty to animals, men. Now, in many animal species, including primates, men have a biological role of guardian of the territory, banishing intruders, and protecting the group from predators. That's embedded in the DNA. Now, interestingly, the role of society over the past couple hundred years is to convert that energy. Any society who doesn't do well to convert that energy. Look what we in Somalia, we call them warlords. In other communities, yeah, we call them dons in Jamaica. Huh? If you don't transform that energy, which was intended to protect the community, and harness it, the paradox is that women are still attracted to powerful men. Whether the power is in the form of money, business, sports, politics, or crime. So that powerful men get the most girls. I remember there was a scenario I saw where in Somalia, there were some young men who were being socialized to become suicide bombers. And this man had a wonderful intervention. He explained to them, but they understood that as a suicide bomber, if you get killed, you get 92 virgins. But he explained to them that as a businessman, you get live women. Everybody forget about suicide bombing and come start study business studies. All right? Dead woman, live, it made a difference. The challenge of society, the challenge of any gender studies entity is to deal with this biggest gender anomaly we have on earth, we have in Jamaica, and it is the forefront of life in the Caribbean. How do we transmute that energy that boys bring into the world, that male energy? How do we transmute that into socially useful options? How do we extend the male-focused education so as to transform that energy? Have you done the analysis of our educational system? We have 7 all-male high schools, we have 16 all-female high schools, and the co-ed school have a sex ratio of between 70 and 75% female. The common entrance exam, which then became the GSAT, is given at the time when girls are 2 years ahead of boys developmentally. Hello, I was child development research fellow. My PhD looked at the development of boys and girls. My first publication looked at the chronology, the whole development. What are the milestones of development of black children? Black children were developing about 1 or 2 years ahead of white children. That's why they call our development precocious. But at that age between 10 and 12, girls are 2 years ahead of boys. So naturally, they will quote unquote pass. So now we end up with a secondary school that is 70% female, tertiary system that between 75 and 80%. And if education is the process that by which we transform behavior and socialization and family life and fathering, if we don't get these things back into if we can challenge that male energy with pro-social behavior, channel it with high competitive activities, channel it into the security forces, because look, if you're going to be involved in that, I'd rather you be a police or a security guard than be a gunman. And if you see how this process embeds even our consciousness at the social level. My good brother Tony Rebel has a wonderful song about be careful what you tell little children. And I always tease him about this. In the line he says that my daughter could be the prime minister. My little girl could be a doctor. What do you say about the son? Me no want my son done no gunman. When I was on the radio, I'd frequently ask people, what do you tell your sons? And everybody come on, well I tell my girl, don't let nobody take liberty with you. I tell my girl, go to school and study. What do you tell your sons? We have dropped the ball. Yes. If we don't fix this, if we don't shift the socialization process to socialize and educate our males towards pre-social, nurturing, and productive outcome. The default, if you do nothing, the default clause is parasites, predators, and violence producers. Our number one gender-related priorities. Thank you.